good evening and welcome to our only meeting for the month of August. We'd like to begin each meeting with a moment of silence, so if you would care to, please join us. Thank you. We will forego the Pledge of Allegiance since we just completed that less than 30 minutes ago. First item on the agenda is approval of tonight's agenda for August 19th. Anyone have any additions, deletions, corrections? Then without objection, I will approve the agenda for tonight. Approved. Public comment. Kevin, you have anything to say?
No, it's not nice.
All right. Approval of minutes for the July 15th board retreat and the July 15th regular board meeting. Anyone see any corrections needing to be made on either of those minutes? Then without objection, we will approve the minutes for the July 15th retreat and regular board meeting. Okay, discussion items, July financial report. Ms. Moore.
All right, you have the report, you've had it for a day or two. Not a lot. No taxes collected as usual. But we're just getting started, so not a whole lot to say. I'll answer questions if you guys have any. All right.
Okay.
Sorry, we should have brought printed copies.
No, we saw it before.
Yeah, I looked at all of it.
Yeah,
I
we're
just
okay.
was afraid someone had questions or discussion and I didn't have it with me. Annual Nepotism Report, Policy GBEA, Mr. Handy.
Yes, and this policy, when we were reviewing policies for change, we didn't really need to make a change in it. We just need to make sure that we were doing what it asked, and what it asked is that we notify the board of situations where immediate family members, spouses work in the same, they call it administrative unit, so it could be the district office, it could be a school. So you have that at your table there. I printed that up. I went through the district. I don't think I missed any. There are some other situations where it may be, in-law or mother, daughter. In no case does any family member supervise another family member, and in no case are they in the same department where they would have to interact on a regular basis, and there might be an opportunity for an issue. And we've honestly, that number is lower now than it was. We've kind of worked to try to minimize it as much as we can. But there are some situations where, folks got married after they were within a building together and that kind of thing. And some of them are in special needs kind of categories, critical needs kind of areas. So we just wanted to make sure you all were aware that we have those married couples in the buildings.
Any questions on that, Ms. Handy?
Yeah, our goal now is we put a note in the file. Next year is when we have your approved contracts in April. We'll just go through everything with that then, and we'll get on a steady schedule to do that at that time. That's the time that makes the most sense.
Okay.
I think the policy actually says board approves, and you kind of approve it when you do contracts, so it would make more sense
To just
for us
present
just to
this
have
as-
this piece of paper when you're doing contracts, so that when you approve contracts, you're
You know
approving these
that that's in
relationships
there.
as well, yeah.
Makes sense. Anything else, Ms. Handy?
No, I think that's it for me, unless you have questions.
Any questions? Mental health counselor update, Ms. Simmons and Dr. Thorson.
Okay, as you know, we had a resignation of one of our mental health counselors in the West SDOC area that served our elementary schools, which brought up this topic of having a conversation about what our district leadership team would recommend for moving forward with hiring of a new counselor for that area. Our district leadership team recommends that we turn that process over to Anderson, Oconee, Pickens Mental Health. I did have a conversation with Mr. Manley, and then I reviewed my notes with Dr. Thorsland and talking with him about this new opening that we have, because presently our goal was for 10 this year, and we are wanting to make sure we're keeping on track with Mr. Manley on where they are in that hiring process. So right now we have 7 positions and we still have 3 vacancies. But in talking with him, it is the state's goal for mental health to have 1 mental health counselor per public school by 2022. So that is their goal. So they're going to be working directly with the state on filling vacancies statewide. So that was encouraging to hear him say that, and I shared that with Dr. Thorsland, that is their goal and they're going to be working hard to fulfill that. In support of the vacancy we do have, he did remind me that at the clinic they are able to serve any of our elementary students in the West Oak area that might need services. So our plan of action right now with having that vacancy is to first offer clinic services to our families, but if there is an issue with transportation or not being able to get them there because of time restraints, that they are to call Stacy Frick at Oconee Academy, and she's going to be filling in those services as needed as well. So we do have a plan of action in place there, but Mr. Manley has offered his support obviously at the clinic too. Obviously, because we still have the 3 vacancies, our goal to 2022 with working with the state is, just being patient with the hiring process. He did tell me that it's not necessarily pay that's getting in the way of finding people, but it's actually just looking and finding those qualified applicants. So one idea that we did talk about is posting our vacancies on our district website. Right now, they're only on AOP Mental Health website, but some people are directly waiting for positions related to working in mental health in a school. So we felt like that might increase the traffic of applicants if we posted it on our website with a direct link to AOP Mental Health, so they did know that the hiring was going to be coming out of their office, but it would be a position in a school, okay? So right now there aren't leads really for those vacancies, but he thought that might help, so they're trying that with some other districts that they've been working with. One thing that we also talked about was the benefit of having our mental health counselors and partnering with AOP is they are under direct supervision with a doctor in services. So right now, our school district mental health counselors are not under supervision or communicating, with a doctor. So if we have students that they are serving with needs such as medications or things like that, then they would have to go through, a different process with that. So he was just saying, sometimes when you have mental health counselors that might lack the postmaster's experience, then you would have to have support under doctor's signature with the plans of actions that you're carrying out with the students. So he said that, that they do a really good job with that monitoring of the caseloads that the AOP counselors are responsible for with their doctors and that type of thing over there as well. I can go into more detail with the different levels of hiring that they have posted within mental health counselor 1, 2, and 3 are the options. So it just depends on a person's experience level where they would fall into those categories. But overall, even with working with them, we'll have complete control over where we feel like our needs are most as far as when they get vacancies filled, where we feel like the schools are that we need to either combine or have as solo schools, those types of things as we move forward.
Well, from everything I hear, the Department of Mental Health counselors doing a fine job
Yeah.
as far as
If I could just relate a story that I just witnessed Thursday night when we had our back-to-school nights across the district. I went to West Oak Middle and was just wandering around, and it was packed. There were parents everywhere. And the Department of mental health counselor was there at the check-in table, and she was just as bubbly as she could be and just said, I just love it. I just want to be here and help. And she was, so it's not like there's a complete separation, that they have a brand that separates them from the rest of the employees of the school. I have seen them be members of the team, you know, and
That's great.
as we talked about it with the South Carolina Department of Mental Health having a goal of having a counselor in every school, as they progress towards that goal, every counselor that we have under our employment, there's just going to be overlap. And I've expressed this before, but I'm just going to tell you, up at this table, and if we had all of our principals in here and they were included with us, we just don't have expertise in mental health counseling. And it's hard to manage things that you're not familiar with, which is part of the reason we made the decision several years ago to move food service to a managed company, because that's not what educators typically do. And I feel pretty strongly that the best way forward would be for us to work with the Department of Mental Health. And
Through attrition, like we did
through
with the
attrition.
food service.
I'm certainly not proposing that we do away with all the positions, but because there's a vacancy, I think that that's the best way to go. I also wanted to share, I've had a couple of conversations, well, one conversation with the State Department of Education. There are some things that we can currently bill for through Medicaid that we have not been billing for. As a matter of fact, Dr. Bright and Dr. Briley have been working on that. There's the assessment part of when we have a student that's having behavioral issues, mental health issues, we can currently bill for the behavioral assessments. There is still a moratorium from the South Carolina Department of Health and Human Services on adding back the RBHS program. There has been a change in both areas, the Department of Education. There was a Dr. McGeorge last year who was over all of our Medicaid billing. She's no longer with the department, so I'm communicating with a lady named Dee Drayton. And then Department of Health and Human Services has had a transition as well, and there's a new gentleman named Dr. Amick who is in charge there. I've reached out to him, have yet to hear back from him. It's on the record here. I'm a little concerned that it's difficult to communicate with folks in the Department of Health and Human Services, because I sent a letter last October, so 10 months ago, I sent a letter to DHHS and never heard anything. Now, it was addressed to a different person who is no longer involved with school district outreach, but like I said, I've reached out to the new person, and I did speak to someone in the office who said this is who you need to talk to, so they gave me the email address, and I reached out. We're still going to continue because whether or not we hire or Department of Mental Health hires, we still have 3 counselors, and we need to be billing as efficiently as we can. So we're still going to pursue that. But that notwithstanding, our recommendation would be that we move that position to the Department of Mental Health. If we chose to hire ourselves, if you directed us to hire that the way it's been, the breakdown right now for the 10 positions we have is that, let's say at the end of last school year, we had 4 positions and they were all full. The Department of Mental Health had 6 positions, 4 of which were full at the end of last school year, so there were 2 vacancies. One of our counselors left, that created the 3rd vacancy. If we advertise under the same employment agreement that we have our other 3 employees, it's very likely that one of the Department of Mental Health counselors is going to apply for and get our job, and there's still going to be 3 vacancies. So our advertising isn't necessarily going to help us go from 7 counselors to 8. It's likely just going to shift, and we're still going to be 7 counselors out of the 10. So anyway, all of that is kind kind of reasoning behind our recommendation.
Well, I think if we proceed, continue to increase and deal with the Department of Mental Health, we may have to look at the salary thing again somewhere, down the line. As long as we have that split, of course, I have no idea what the quality applicant pool looks like for mental health counselors, but, sometimes, and I guess I'm accustomed to how efficiently our human resources operates, they seem a little slow in filling positions, and it may be because of a lack of quality applicants, which I understand.
And there's a process after them that has to go to the state too, so it's a lot more
It's more involved
than
than
what
the
we
school
have to
district
do in our
council.
district, yes.
And I would also say, just from kind of a 30,000 foot view, we're not the only school district doing this.
Oh, no.
And 3 years ago, you didn't hear any talk about mental health counselors in schools. It was certainly not talked about in the news. It wasn't such a popular topic, but the tragedies in schools, the school shootings, the suicides that have been all too common, that has caused it to be a popular topic. So there's school districts around the state, but also outside of our state, that are trying to hire just like we are. So I really do think it's probably a lack of quality applicants just because there's such a demand for those positions right now. It's very similar in machine tool technology.
Yeah.
If you're a machinist or a CNC operator, you can go to work anywhere in Oconee County, and likely anywhere in the southeast right now, because there's just a lack of quality employees in that area. And I think we're kind of seeing that with mental health right now. And what'll happen is more people will get trained in that area, and then they'll fill those jobs. But it may not be a next month we've got it fixed kind of thing. It may be a several month to maybe even year long process.
Are most districts doing what we're doing with the salary too, adding a little to the basic mental health counselor salary?
It's hard for me to say
Yeah.
exactly what other districts are doing. I think most districts who do have employees that are their own, that are kind of employees of the school district, there wasn't really a salary scale for mental health counselors because it was new. So the easiest thing for school districts to do, just pay them on the teacher salary schedule. And then when you do that, it's 190 days, which is one of the weaknesses of our model, is that there's no continuum of service in the summer. So I think probably, I do know, I spoke with one additional superintendent last year, and they had the same situation as us, a couple of mental health counselors employed by the district, some by mental health, and they paid their own mental health counselors the same way we did, just on the teacher salary schedule. I think that's something that, we just need to adjust to get consistency, and I think the easiest way to get consistency is to let the Department of Mental Health own mental health counseling, because that's what they do. That's what they're good at.
Kind of keep us up to date on the progress, not a full-fledged briefing, but just a comment occasionally that, how we're going.
I have a question. The individual that's leaving is from supporting what schools?
The elementary schools in the West Oak area.
So we're talking about Fair Oak Elementary? Okay. Who is the mental health counselor at Northside?
The mental health counselor at Northside is Laurie Jordan.
Okay. Northside may have another one. The young lady who was leaving suggested that she has the qualifications, but I don't think she is being used in that manner.
She's the guidance counselor. She's a guidance counselor who
Right.
did not have, I believe that she is still seeking State Department certification for being a school guidance counselor, if I'm not mistaken. But she was hired as the second guidance counselor at Northside. They have two
Okay.
because they're the largest elementary school that we have. And, she's half-time at both. Okay, so she's half-time at both. She's at Northside and Fair Oak, and,
In other words, there's a possibility we could still use her because she is certified to
she,
do what we are trying to find a position for her. I'll let you all look into that.
Yes.
I was told she could, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true,
Okay.
you know? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
No, she's not.
Any other questions of Dr. Thorson? Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, I think you're still up, Dr. Thorson, with the donation of
I am.
frames to the Tribble Center.
And this is kind of a point of celebration. I want to tell you, I'm anxious for y'all to get to our office because we have, well, I say we, I shouldn't say we. Stan DeBose and the art teachers have redecorated our office, and they, we did it in a way that would make it easier for them each year. And he and his wife Robin purchased some frames through their art studio so that they could give them to us at a much lesser cost than if we had bought these. They're really nice frames, and they've been up for a number of weeks, but they've been empty. Well, the art teachers got back this week and they loaded those frames, so I think they'll tell you, it looks awesome in our office. There are 8 pictures, 8 frames per school, and they're grouped by school, and then we put some vinyl lettering above it to identify which school it is. And we literally took the office and went from south to north. So Fair Oak is way down on the Chattooga room side, and then Tomasi Elementary is way on the instruction side. But they look fabulous. But what that ended up with is the gold frames that we had that were just kind of hit and miss around the office. They are, I think Stan told me, about 20 years old, and some of them were coming apart. And anyway, major facelift in the office, so I'm excited for y'all to get to come see that. But Stan had been in communication with someone, I think it's in Westminster, the lady that runs the Gateway to the Arts. I believe that's who it is. She does art lessons with the Tribble Center. And Stan and she had talked about the frames at the office, and if we had any that were not needed, she would love to have them for artwork at the Tribble Center. So I'm just asking, anytime we get rid of equipment that's outside of our procurement code, you have to approve it. So I'm asking that you would approve the donation of some of the frames that are no longer being used at the district office to the Tribble Center so that they can use them with their art lessons. And Stan DeBose, again, I want to pat him on the back along with the rest of the art teachers because they've done a great job. And we certainly appreciate the relationship we have with the Tribble Center and what the work they do, which is similar to the work we do, just for an adult population. So we would love to help them if you approve that donation.
We put them up, it would probably be like putting them up at my house and I couldn't find them when I needed them years down the road.
That's right.
Okay, that concludes the discussion items. The only action item we have is for the donation of the frames to the Tribble Center. With any questions, Dr. Thorson, on this? Could I get a motion to approve the donation of the excess picture frames to the Tribble Center?
I make a motion that we donate the excess picture frames to the Tribble Center.
Second.
Motion was second to approve the donation. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you. That concludes the open session portion. Next is the executive session for discussion of employment recommendations and changes and an update on the Seneca Middle School property. So without objection, we will move into executive session and return shortly.